Good evening, televiewers. Welcome to this other edition of Prime Hour on My Media. Prime, the first for the week. We are glad to be once again before your screens to discuss on topical issues touching on our national and international lives. We are this day going to be looking at the outing, a petition that was presented recently by 12 UK MPs urging the UK government to engage in diplomatic efforts to see into it that the ongoing crisis in the northwest and southwest regions are effectively brought to a halt. We are going to be also evaluating the job done so far by the Bilingualism Commission. Since its creation, we know that Cameroon has been celebrating what we call the Bilingualism Week. How better is Cameroon bilingual after the creation of the Bilingualism Commission? We're going to be discussing this with panelists who already are in the house. I'm starting with you, Mohamedou Suleiman, all the way from Kumba, the Green City, chief town of Meme Division, militant of the Social Democratic Front. He was very frequent with us here when we just started this journey. He's been away for some time. We are glad to have him back with us this evening. Good evening and welcome.
Yeah, good evening, Mr. Kum. It's a pleasure to be on board again on this channel. We are ready to discuss some of the salient issues affecting our country, and we're ready for that this evening.
How is Cape Town?
Well, Cape Town, no, there were a lot of contradiction, confusion, discrepancy within the CPDM party, fighting, allegation, counter-allegation, infighting for the post of the city mayor. But finally, the dust has settled down, and Gregory Mewano has finally been sworn in, and he's waiting installation to pick up his job as a city mayor. But he has even started grading the roads in Kumba. He has started grading the roads in Kumba, at least, which is a positive sign in the right direction. That we expect something tangible to come from him.
Okay, but the roads of Kumba were not passable for some time too. It's not been easy. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I'm telling you. That the guy have started. He brought a new caterpillar. The caterpillar.
No, I mean the road between Kumba.
Kumba was not possible because of the Amber Boys. The Amber Boys, they are on and off. They are not at times. During the months of November and December, they were not regular. In fact, they have left the route for us to move freely during Christmas time. There was no impediment, difficulty, or problems in crossing the road from Kumba to Buea. There was no problem. But now it has started again. They have started again. They intermittently interrupt traffic from the citizens, and they are engaging themselves into crossfire with the military. And I think even today I learned that the one general and one other person was gone down today in Balangi. So I think though military option is not the solution, but I think it's high time that we should bring an end. We should bring a stop to this killing of Cameroonians against Cameroonians.
Okay. Also with us is the Secretary General of the Popular Action Party, PAP, in the person of Fabrice Lena, all the way from Yaoundé, Cameroon's capital. We're glad to have you.
Thank you very much, Sir Leo. I'm always happy and glad to be your guest. And I want to also thank the numerous viewers of my Media Prime Hour program, and to greet the National President of the Popular Action Party, Jan Denis Tabe, and our militants, and to tell Cameroonians that we are here again once more to give our own contribution to see how this crisis that have been ravaging our areas of origin, our good cities of Bamenda, Kumba, Manfe, Boya, Limbe, Ndop, all these places, to see how we could revive life back again, we could live again as it used to be, or even more. And we pray that what we are going to say here go a long way to contribute to also make the international diplomatic representatives and those diplomats to hear our cry and to understand that it is time for us to put hand in deck as citizens of Cameroon and the world at large to solve this problem.
Okay.
And I want to also greet Mr. Suleiman, who is a co-panelist here with me. He's always a noble man, and I believe that together we are going to look beyond our party lines and see how to construct the country together. And to also greet my brother, the Pan-Africanist. That is a great pleasure to be amidst you people.
Okay, we also are in the company of Andrew Atemi Bako. He is a Pan-Africanist par excellence. Good evening. We're glad to have you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kum Leonard, and the co-panelists. Thank you very much, Mr. Fabrice Lena and Mr. Suleiman. And Happy New Year to everyone. Thank you very much.
Just to note that from time to time, Tiku Felix is going to be intervening all the way from Boya, Southwest Regional Capital, to discuss the two topics actually shortlisted for our discussions this evening. I'll start with you. Muhammad Suleiman, all the way from Kumba. When UK MPs are saying that they are deeply concerned by the ongoing conflict in the Southwest and Northwest region, is it news for them to still say 4 or 5 years after that they are deeply concerned?
The issue is that this crisis is almost going to 4 or 5 years today, and a lot of diplomatic interruptions have come into Cameroon from the Commonwealth, from the Francophonie, from the African Union, from the European Union, even from the United Nations. They have tried to intervene to make sure that maybe this issue can be resolved peacefully, amicably, through dialogue and discussion, but to no avail. They have done their best, but now at that time it was an internal affair. But the situation in Cameroon now has gone beyond internal affair. It needs external affair, because the degree and the gravity of killings taking place in the Northwest and Southwest has reached unprecedented proportion. Genocide, ethnic cleansing, mass killing, it has reached an unprecedented proportion. So we need external people to come in now and talk on this issue. It is no longer an internal affair. It's supposed to be an external affair. People have to intervene now and talk, just like the emissary of the Pope, the envoy who came and met President Paul Biya, who spent 6 days in Cameroon, although he only met some few colleagues, and his message did not go round because not every colleague he met. I think, but we need external dialogue now. We need people to come in now and talk. So the issue that the British government is raising now, they have
some British MPs. They say they are deeply concerned.
Yes, it's because they have seen that the gravity of the situation, the enormity of the death taking place in the Norway and Southwest, the violation of human rights, the violation of civil liberties, has created the people think that it is high time that they have to intervene and talk on this issue.
Yeah, but they have been there for the past 4 years.
Yeah, but they took their time. They took their time. Gradually, they studied the situation, galvanized the basis to know what was happening, and they have come to understand that this thing now is no longer an affair of it's no longer an internal affair of Cameroon. It is an external affair. External people have to come in now and mediate. They have to come in and talk on the issue now, because leaving it only with the Cameroon government is a non-starter. It's an effort in futility. It's a wasted effort. It's going nowhere. So the best is that let them come in now and talk on the issue, so that the international community will know that at least something of gravity is happening in the Northwest and Southwest regions.
Okay, Fabrice Lena, these UK MPs are quoting the Norwegian Refugee Council that actually says that the conflict in Cameroon is the most neglected crisis on the planet for the second year running. You buy that opinion?
I will first of all want to say that some of the UK deputies who are concerned about the people of Southern Cameroon, I greet them and I say it is supposed to be more than that. It is supposed to be more than that, because we cannot forget the direct link between the people of Southern Cameroon, the government of Cameroon, and the whole saga of colonialism, post-colonialism, the plebiscite, right up to where we are finding ourselves today. The problem of Cameroon is, of course, a historical problem. And the marginalization of the people of Southern Cameroon, which is now Northwest and Southwest, did not even begin with the government of Ahidjo or even with the government of Biya. It began as far back as the mandate system, because the British government attachment of people of Southern Cameroon, British Southern Cameroon, to Nigeria as integral part of Nigeria was never any of the provisions of the League of Nations. And the people of Southern Cameroon at that time were never satisfied throughout the mandate system and the trusteeship with this attachment to Nigeria, because the people were supposed to be managed as a separate entity of the League of Nations by the British government. But since international diplomacy and politics is the way it is, British attached and marginalized. They do not only attach, they also marginalize, because we saw that throughout the mandate system in British Southern Cameroon, infrastructural development at the level of education, at the level of health services, at the level of economic infrastructure were neglected right up to the trustee system. The people of Southern Cameroon became politically conscious around the 1940s with the launching of the Cameroon Youth League, right up to the creation of political parties. They fought to come out from the Nigerian Eastern Region House of Assembly. They fought to get quasi-autonomy. And all this was under the supervision of the British government, who did very little to let the people of Southern Cameroon emancipate.
Yeah, but someone will say that is history, and that
is history. Yeah. But I think the British government have a share of responsibility to look up to a problem that previous British leaders were responsible for it to occur today. Because even at the level of the July 17 to 21, July 17 to 21 negotiations in Fumban, it was supposed that the British government representatives come and protect the interests or even advise the Southern Cameroon, but they did not do that.
But my question, I want us to stay within the confines of my question. They are saying that according to the Norwegian Refugee Council, they declared that the conflict in Cameroon is the most neglected crisis on the planet Earth for second year running. Can we understand this?
Let me just if they say it's the most neglected, who are the people who have veto power in the United Nations Security Council? Who are the people who are supposed to intervene? Because British policy of international relations is always non-intervention into affairs of other countries. So if they are not acting, they should be first of all guilty of neglecting. And if they come now and say that the world should look to, they should begin by advocating. That's why I started by congratulating those deputies who came to advocate. So if they are advocating now that the world should look to, they should be the first to go to the Security Council and vote for intervention in the crisis of the Southern Cameroonian people that have led to death of thousands of people, which is still unfolding. Because there is conflict at the level of the international community or at the level of the United Nations Security Council between the British government, the American government, and the French government. We don't know who is protecting the interests of the government of Cameroon, or who is protecting the interests of people of Southern Cameroon. So if the British government have the consent of the people of Southern Cameroon enough, they should advocate and do the necessary and play the diplomatic card in favor of the people so that the problem will be resolved. Their intervention will help a lot.
I don't know whether there's a diplomatic tie between the British government and the people of Southern Cameroon. It's a diplomatic relation between Cameroon and the British. But can we understand why some people say it is the most neglected crisis on planet Earth today?
It is not Metalio. I think that is just propaganda. Because the
MPs are doing propaganda.
That's propaganda. That's totally propaganda. And secondly, I want to strongly believe that they are here to protect the interests of their ally France in Cameroon, because you look, it was the British before the independence that refused at the level of the League of Nations and the United Nations that the English Cameroon should not be granted independence. They refused that. They were the one who sent a message to the United Nations and prevented that the Southern Cameroon should not be granted independence.
The British.
Yes. So we understood from history. To me, the way I look at it is like you leave your wife at home and you seem to want to show love on a prostitute. It's another word of madness. So they don't care for us and they don't love us, because we cannot only cite the case of Cameroon as the most neglected. We have had other genocides in other parts of Africa where we recorded thousands and thousands of people We are only Cameroon here. The statistics the United Nations is doing, we are talking of 4,000 persons.
4,000 persons have been killed.
Have been killed already.
765,000 people displaced, and 4 million persons affected.
Exactly, out of a population of 5 million in those two regions. So we are not refusing the fact that we have this crisis there, Mr. Liu. But one of the things that I want to say here is that these are the very people who put us in this mess. If you want to help us, the first thing they should have done is to get us out of that pit. Then we can help ourselves. But as long as we are still dependent on the structure which has been organized by France, there is no help no international organization can offer to us. Because at the end of the day, it seems as if they want to make peace inside of a pit. We need to come out of that pit. We need to be people of self-determination. So these are the things that I would say that if they want to help us, they should have advocated at the level of the UN National Security Council as people with veto power, people who can change decisions. At any moment, they so will at that level to say, no, we must do something about this situation, and that will be affected. But France being part of the member of the veto power at the National UN Security Council, Russia, America, China, these are all allies. I will still say that it is difficult for you to assemble a people where there is no head. And that is where it's killing us Cameroon and it's killing us Africa. They will always come and propagate because they realize when Nigeria was celebrating its the most strongest economy in Africa, that's when you started hearing of the Boko Haram in Nigeria. When we had some of the colonial pacts were finished in 2010, 2014, we started hearing Boko Haram in Cameroon today. That is what you have in. Look at the case of Ethiopia. How many persons do we have there killed as we stand? Almost about 15,000 people. So what I'm saying here, Mr. Liu, I see it as propaganda. If they want to help us, the first thing they should have done, like I still say, they should have given us a seat at the level of the UN National Security Council. Then Africa can be able to manage themselves. But at that level, we are being marginalized. Just like he rightly said, he laid a tremendous foundation on the history. We cannot say it has passed. How can you say it has passed? These are the things that are evolving before our face based on the history. A man who wants to turn away from his history is a man who is like a tree without no roots. So it is a history we look to analyze the unfolding. So
you think that the British are playing hypocrisy?
Absolutely, Mr. Liu. Absolutely. The other time we had the PM from the United America. Now we are hearing the one of the British. That is exactly it, because the way I look at it, Mr. Liu, as an analyst and as a Pan-Africanist, France is losing its grip in this part of Africa. Same like what Malians are saying, they don't want France. We are fed up with France. What is so difficult if really, genuinely they love us? Tell France to leave. Let us be able to own our own currency.
We should tell France, let's take the first intervention from...
the British should tell France to leave.
Yeah, but how do you tell France to leave?
But why would they not leave?
Okay, let's get the first intervention from Boya, from Tiku, Felix.
Mr. Leo, when it comes to diplomacy, I hate this phrase, I condemn, and the word sovereignty. The big guns meet together in their high places, in their so-called meetings or whatever, discuss their big deals and their various benefits at the detriment of the common man. Then they come in the open to be condemning something they can't change, though they have the will to do so, the will to cause a change. Something called sovereignty is always standing the way. Who has not condemned when it comes to dealing with the Anglophone crisis? America even took sanctions, withdrawing troops from Cameroon, suspending Cameroon from AGOA. But recently we realized the relationship between the two countries has even grown stronger. How many times has the US Senate spoken, condemning, calling for commission of inquiries to look on whatsoever case? Is the UK, who has even been a colonial master of this country and the main cause of this problem, are they different, Mr. Leo? For 4 years today that this crisis has been going on, the UK have been quiet. And based on diplomacy, no matter how they condemn, they can only act based on Cameroon's acceptance to allow them do what Cameroon wants them to do because of that word sovereignty. Cameroon has its sovereignty, so they cannot bypass whatever to act. And the soldiers and whosoever keep doing what they are doing, and we sit quiet only for the UK to come again and start making noise. The killing in Gabu was condemned. The killing in Bali was condemned. The killing in Kumba was condemned. The recent killing in Mautu has been condemned. And the condemnation keeps going on and on. While sovereignty, that word sovereignty, keeps keeping them away. Who is fooling who here, Mr. Leo? It has been proven that the West will never work for the interest of the Africans. Intervention will only come at a price that only the head of state or the government in power can pay. And if at all they are the only ones who actually can pay, which is usually through the trading of resources and other deals, which direction do you think, Mr. Leo, that the ball will roll in? Please, let the UK Parliament stop backing. We have heard enough of such, but they should be ashamed of their actions. The Africans, let me say the African man, especially the Cameroonian man, and the Anglophone Cameroonian, is no longer ignorant of the devices of the West. We have been fooled enough. For us to solve this problem, it will take us. It will take us to understand that if the Francophones call the Anglophones brothers, then they should sit together and know that a brother is in pain. And only another brother can intervene, not a third party. Because a third party only comes in if there is an interest, if there is something they are going to benefit, and which is going to be very, very detrimental to the economy of this country at the long run, if they should even solve this problem. So with the UK's act now, I don't think it makes any difference, and they should be ashamed that being a colonial master for this length of time, they have been quiet, having all these records, still being quiet, and they are the cause of what we are going through. Shame to the UK, shame to the UK Parliament.
Okay, thank you there for intervening. From Buea, Tiku Felix, we are going to continue having you contribute to this discussion this evening. To you now, Suleiman, the UK MPs, they say they are urging the UK government to publicly condemn the violence, what he just talked about, and to bring to light all crimes and injustices. Can the UK government do that, knowing fully well that he just raised the issue of sovereignty?
No, the problem is that the issue now is not the matter of sovereignty. The issue now is the enormous killing that has taken place in the Norway and Southwest that has attracted the attention of the international community on the Northwest and Southwest region. That is the problem now. As I said, a lot of people have died. Houses have been burnt. Human rights abuses, civil liberties being violated. So I think now, and to me, I feel the decision of the MPs of the British is a positive step taken in the right direction, because if genuinely believe in what they are saying and they want to embark on what they said, I think we have got a positive solution. I think part of the solution.
But they're calling on the UK government to bring to light crimes that have been committed, and then justice should be meted out. But do they have what it takes to do that?
No, you see.
How do you do this?
You see, so many international people have talked about Cameroon. And now, not that they will use force to intervene in Cameroon, not that they will use economic sanction to intervene in Cameroon. is just to bring the attention of the government in power that you guys, enough is enough. Let's go for dialogue. Let's go for inclusive dialogue. Let's talk one-on-one. Let's go for inclusive dialogue. That will attract all the issues concerned, all the contentious issues should be put on table. And it's not an issue whether they release Seseko, Ayutabi, or what. No, that's not the problem. What about the people in the bushes? What about the guys in the diaspora? Everybody, it should be inclusive dialogue with the British coming in as a third party. There must be an external arbiter to monitor the dialogue. The problem is the government of Cameroon. Will they accept? Will they agree that all issues will be brought on the table? Because that's the problem. They know the problem very well. They know the problem. And the British coming in now, the British know that if they come in as a third party to resolve this matter, the government of this country will not be happy. They will not like it. Because all the contentious issues militating against Southern Cameroon is in the hands of the British. They know everything from Genesis up to this period that we're in.
But they know everything. But
they know everything.
They have not been speaking.
Yeah, because even the reason why even British abandoned us, the reason why British did not support the third option during the plebiscite was because we refused to join Nigeria. Because British government wanted us to join Nigeria, to be part of Nigeria. But the monarchs, the Funchas voted against. That the PM Kales and the PM Kale Mbile all wanted us to join Nigeria. But the monarch, Funcha, all they wanted not to join Nigeria. You see? Because Mbile even wrote a book that we should join Nigeria. And then Mbile, Namaso Mbile. So you see, because we refused to join Nigeria, the British government went against us and they refused to support us during the struggle, because the support that Ahidjo got, like the Republic from France, we did not get from the British because of the recalcitrant attitude towards the British government. So they withdrew their support and left Ahidjo and the French to manipulate our local politicians, who at that time their education was very, very low because they were just primary school teachers. So you see, I think the position that the British have taken, let us give them an opportunity.
No, it's a call yes, from the MPs.
Let us give them, let us give them the opportunity to see whether they will actually do what they have said. If they will try to bring their government to order, to reasoning that we should go to Cameroon, talk to President Paul Biya, that we need something, I think that would be good. The problem is not the British MPs or the government. The problem is the government of this country. Are they ready for a third party to come for any inclusive dialogue? Are they ready for any inclusive dialogue? I rest my case.
You rest your case. Now, when the UK MPs are asking for the UK government to engage in shedding light on all the crimes committed within the context of the ongoing crisis, and to ensure that injustices are looked into, are we not talking about going into the internal affairs of another nation?
British is, first of all, a non-interventionist country by its policies in Africa since the colonial era. Indirect rule means preparing people for self-governance, and they have always been like that. In the world, a British man is known to be a merchant who come to a place for his economic and trade transactions. And we are seeing that with British colonies in Africa, Nigeria, Kenya, Zimbabwe, and the like. And when deputies say they want the government to bring the crimes committed to light and justices made, there is some sort of very ambiguous statement that does not have a verifiable steps and mechanisms of its realization. Bringing out injustices and crimes committed into the light of the world is not enough for people to act. It's not enough for people to act. Because when I say it's not enough, I look at the way world diplomacy functions. The essence of Cameroon's problem is at the level of the United Nations Security Council, and also trade deals between Cameroon and some of these world powers like the US, like the UK, like Germany, like China, like Russia. Because once this country realize that withdrawing some fundamental aid, economic support, military support, Israeli government, they are training of elite commando. When these people withdraw some of this vital support, I'm telling you, the government is going to be bent by these sanctions to go in for inclusive dialogue or for negotiations that will end this crisis. I wanted to also maybe react to some of the elements evoked by Mr. Suleiman, that in the history of the Southern Cameroons, at the verge of independence, there have been no country that was politically matured in the principle and the propaganda of democracy like the people of Southern Cameroons. Looking at the stage where they formed political parties, started participating in local politics, right up to the level where they withdraw themselves from Enugu. Because the Southern Cameroon had always been seen as the people who even emancipated Nigerian politics in the southern part of Nigeria. So to assert that maybe British did not support because they did not want to join Nigeria, that is not true. British had always been non-interventionist people. And in the decolonization process of their country, when you people are mature, they let it go. And they were not even interested in the way you want to achieve it. That's how they let Ghana go. That's how they let Kenya go. When you look at the colonization process of most of British countries, they were never so concerned about what happens after the independence. So the complicated situation of Cameroon, where we found ourselves with some other colonial power who was so interested in what happens with its colony after independence, was the question mark where Britain had to come in to ensure that the interests of the people I had supervised should be respected in the union where they are going in. That did not happen. And that is why in all the negotiations for a federal structure or for the living together or the coming together of Cameroon, British Southern Cameroon and French Cameroon in the 1961 arrangements of Fumban, Britain was never there, but France was always present in each step. And that's where the domination and marginalization began to date. It is the responsibility, therefore, of the British government at this stage, not only to advocate and ask their government, but their government, if they are not playing hypocritical games in the international community, to come forth and defend, stand for the people of British Southern Cameroon. They are like most of the other unrepresented people states in the world, to advocate for us. Because I believe that at this stage where we find ourselves in war among ourselves, in around 1978-9, during the reign of Idi Amin Dada in Uganda, when Idi Amin took arms against the people of I think Tanzania, yes, against the people of Tanzania, it was then Mwalimu Julius Nyerere who was president. What happened? The world started making propaganda of how dangerous, how bad, how wicked Idi Amin was, because of he took arm against his fellow African brother. But we have a president who declared war on his own people in the same country, and these people seem to have a historical specificity that the world is supposed to look onto, but nobody is saying it. And the president is not condemned in the international scene, because I am still to see a newspaper in Britain, in France, in UK, in US that is condemning the president of Cameroon for not sufficiently managing crisis in his country. Our regime is a regime that does not like major exposure. Okay. So at that level, we were expecting the international community not to only act by making declarations, because all what they have been making empty declarations. I'm even looking at the Commonwealth, where they take the noble community of Commonwealth. Cameroon is part, but the people who are supposed to be representing in Cameroon are in trouble, but they are not doing anything. So we think that they are.
Good evening to you, Paul Noel, who is watching us via social media. To you, Anita Eno, Takang, Prince Ndikum. Good evening to you, and Gad. Good evening to all of you. Gibelto Solo. Good evening to you guys. Pro Kitoko. Good evening to you. I'm glad to know that you're following. I know the debate is also very, very strong on social media. But do you think that, like he is saying, that the British, because they brought us to where we are today, should revise their policy of non-intervention because of what is happening in the Northwest and Southwest region? Is it possible to see a turnaround in the British foreign policy?
Mr. Leo, you see, this is where history is very important. Because to start with, we were not colonized by the British, neither by the French. These are just opportunists that are taking advantage of Cameroonians, let me put it that way. And then if you look again, like what my co-panelist was talking about, that was why the British had to remove their hands because we did not join Nigeria. No, the British sold the English Cameroon to the French Cameroon. They had a certain deal with France. That was clear in history. When I remember that when they met at a certain point at Miselele, where the British troops and the French troops came after they defeated the Germans in the Second World War, when the map came as the League of Nations requested that all colonies should be mapped, that all the colonies should be mapped so that the UN, the League of Nations should know that this country this is the geographic boundary of this country, this is the geographic boundary of this country. When the map came from London, showing that the portion of the English Cameroon where the British had fought was given to France, the troops on ground resisted and decided to go into war with the troops of the French troops on ground. That was when London had to change the map. So I'm just simply saying here, Mr. Liu, that there had already been a plan. That is why you are seeing all these manifestations today. People need to know why things are the way they are based on where we are coming from. So the idea of putting these people in the French Cameroon had already been, that is why he said that the marginalization had already been as a foundation. So we should not dispute that one. And again, Mr. Liu, I want to ask the question here that why is it that at the level of the UN National Security Council, Africa has no representative? This question no African keeps asking themselves. And yet we are expecting the West to come and help us. On what grounds? The West can help themselves. They have, France is there, Eastern Europe, Europe is there, Russia is there, Asia, you have China, America is there, and then you have the United Kingdom as well. So they are well protected. To exploit who? To exploit Africa. That was the main issue of the meeting in 1884 at the Berlin Conference, where they settled their own issues, just to have grab over the lands of Africa. So we must understand that the history of France or French or British is just a whole propaganda and political strategy to exploit the people, and this is what is still happening till today. We are being exploited, Mr. Liu. So I am saying that. So
you think, irrespective of this call from the MPs, the British government is definitely not going to do anything?
Even if they have to do something, Mr. Liu, it would be like giving something to take something. What we are asking today, if there should be any result that will end up coming out from this struggle and conflict in the Northwest and in the Southwest, is that the people of Cameroon should come together. That should be the only significant result that should come out. If we should open our room for UK to enter and come in, or for France to enter and come, or for any other international body to come and enter, Mr. Liu, they will still protect their interests, and we have seen it in many other African countries, including Liberia, Libya, Mali, Central Africa. Name them, Mr. Liu. It has always been the same scenario. What are we saying? How can a country, you talk about sovereignty? We don't have sovereignty, Mr. Liu. That word sovereignty is just a propaganda at the level of the...
What do you mean by that? How do you mean?
What is sovereignty, Mr. Liu? What is sovereignty when the people do not have right to their own economic resources, to their own political issues? A good example will be here now. We are in Cameroon. We have intervention of British. We have intervention of France. What then is democracy? Can we not make our own decision? Must they always come and intervene? Look at Central Africa. They are there. Look at Mali. They are there. What are they doing there? Are we in their own side? The answer is no. So this is not democracy. This is exploitation. I think that this is a dictatorship in democracy. So I am saying that, Mr. Liu, until we begin to look, and this is really where the problem is, Mr. Liu. Let me try to say this problem the way I see it. The gap between the older generation and the younger generation is what is causing this conflict today. There is no attachment and link and relationship between the older leaders and the younger generation which are coming up today. That is where the resistance is coming. Because we seem to have an old people in power whose leadership is not capable of creating room for new leaders to come up. If Mr. Biya should leave power today, we don't find any person competent. Let me say, whereby we say that the country has groomed these people to say they can take over. They can continue to lead, Mr. Leo, but as elders who have wisdom and we have energy and vision, how do we match all of this together to build a good nation? And this is what we need. We don't need the old people to go away. We need relationship. There must be that balance where the younger generation have political decision-making possibility in a country.
Okay.
This is very important.
Okay, Andrew, Prince Nzikum, good evening to you once again, and to you, Brian Cyprian, good evening to you, Smith Bright, and to you, Amos Nui, good evening to you, Entril Elv, good evening to you, Rose Banwi, and to Mboko Mana, good evening to all of you guys watching via the social media. Glad to know that the debate is also hot that way. Now, the UK government, the MPs, Suleiman, the MPs want the UK government to work with global partners and use all diplomatic means at their disposal to assist in de-escalating the violence in the northwest and southwest regions. Do they have the means? What are these diplomatic means?
What I will say here is this: the world has evolved. 1960 up to now is almost about 60 years, or 61, about 60 years. The world has evolved. The world has gone under transformation. You see, it has gone over transformation, problems, difficulty, and predicaments. The world has gone through, and now the world is acting like a global village. There's a consensus on general issues when it comes to internal affairs or intervening on in the internal affairs of a country. Those days are gone. You just get up and do what you want to do. No. There are certain considerations that you have to take into before taking any action. If you know the historical background, France did not win any war. France lost the First World War, lost the Second World War. France had nothing. Therefore, that's why after the Berlin Conference, France was only grabbing low-income African states: Togo, Benin, Mali, Nigeria, Burkina Faso. That was why I see even after they called those countries, they give them draconian conditionalities. For you to become president of United States, there are some draconian given to you by France. And all those European nations were watching because they know France is empty. France has nothing to depend on. So they gave all those draconian conditionalities to whosoever will become the president.
But the MPs are calling on the UK government to use its diplomacy to ensure that violence is that the government and the
first person they will use that diplomacy is France.
Okay.
It's France. The first person they will call to order, because they are the suppliers of weapons, they are the suppliers of ammunition to this government. So they have to bring them to order. And France has a lot of economic interest in this country where it does not want it go. Let it go, no. Especially even now that Solara has gone down. It has touched France tremendously.
You think that the British government can give orders to France?
No, they can persuade them through diplomacy, through dialogue, and you can persuade them to see reality and accept certain issues on the ground, and for the sake of peace and tranquility, stability to take place in the Anglophone regions. You understand? So all I'm saying is that why the British government is going to play the democracy all along. They will not use any weapon. They will not use any arm. They will not use economic sanction. All they will do is they will have to only consider themselves through diplomatic means, procedures for them to achieve their aim. They only want to make sure that at least let there be some meeting point where these guys can meet and talk and dialogue, discuss, understand themselves better. Let them drop their ammunition.
Recently, I'm sure 2-3 weeks ago, there was an economic partnership that was signed between the Cameroon government and Britain, and we saw a British MP, a female MP for that matter, who lambasted the government, asking how you are engaging in an economic partnership with a country that is at war, and saying that the government is not serious. Are we saying that the UK government is not conscious of what is happening?
That's the interesting.
Do they need to be reminded by the MPs?
The point is that interest counts.
Okay.
Your interest counts in international politics, not diplomacy. Whatever you do, you have to consider your interests. You see, there was a book I wrote that the Bakassi Peninsula is rich in marine resources, oil resources, gas resources. And the British government is embarking on dialogue and discussion with the Cameroon government to secure those areas. So even if they are talking about this, there's some underground politics still going on. Because interest counts in international politics. No matter how you talk, no matter the noise you make, the bottom line is that what is our interest there? All this fighting, we are fighting for this thing to be resolved. What is our interest there? That's the bottom line. The MPs have to convince the government of Britain that you are saying that we should go and talk to these people. What is our interest? What are we going to benefit from it? What will be the outcome? Is it going to favor us? These are some of the basic fundamental questions that comes to international diplomacy when it means to intervention or interruption in any country's internal affair.
Okay. Once again, we are going over to Buea to get the second intervention of Felix Tiku.
Mr. Leo, you know, language is very sensitive, very, very tactical as well as very technical, especially when it involves using punctuation marks and certain terminologies. The strength of a sentence is usually determined by how and whoever is using it. A man was accused for having committed a crime, and after serious interrogations, he finally accepted by using the statement, "I did it." But when a lawyer was hired to handle the case, he refused that there was a typographical error, that his client never accepted to have committed a crime. He said his client asked a question, "I did it," with a question mark, not "I did it," with a full stop, and the case took a different turn. We have to be very careful when dealing with the West, my brother. This crisis in the Anglophone region has taken 4 years. I mean 4 years, and it is a terrible thing to know that the UK has all these records, yet they have been the most quiet until they are citing the report of the Norwegian Refugee Council. Mr. Leo, the UK is one of those countries that have proven to have no interest in the solving of this crisis, yet they take advantage of the government's need for money to sign billion-deal contracts in the midst of the crisis. And this same UK Parliament turned a blind eye and stood quiet on that. Who are they trying to fool? Is this recent call a cry? Is it not a means or another means of igniting fire again after people are getting some kind of rest with the level of quietness that we are experiencing now? Are they not trying to create a scene for another avenue for a business deal to be signed again? We are tired of the scheme of the UK. We are tired of the scheme of the West. And it is time for us to decide whether we want to solve this problem or not, and not looking on what the UK or whatever country in the West is saying.
Okay, that was Felix Tiku. Good evening to you guys, Bechem, Daryl, Jens, and to you, Tahiri Atemibako. I understand it's not easy with you out there. Mimi Minasha, good evening to you. And to you, Kiria Anyo. Please, it's not war, eh? We are talking about democracy. Let us respect what others think, and we should also have respect, especially for those who take time to come and talk here. It's not easy to be here to say the things that some of our panelists are saying. So we should respect and appreciate what they are doing. Do you buy what Tiku Felix just said there? That the British government is seemingly just playing for time and doing, I don't know.
Well, you know, Leo, the West brought us democracy, but I would say that if democracy is what is happening in Africa after 1990, I would say that that is then the worst form of governance or government. Why do I say so? When you observe keenly, Mr. Liu, all the leaders of Africa that fought for the liberation of Africa, all of them, when you watch the Nkrumahs, the Webb Du Bois, the Julius Nyereres, the Jomo Kenyettas, when you watch Samora Machel, Thomas Sankara, and the others, you discover that these people had a different vision of Africa that was coming with so much wave, strength, and it could be easily realized, because these people, by the launching of the African Union, what these people had in their mind was a vision that was clear, and it was so sure to be achieved within a short period of time. But you know what, Leo? When you look at 1960 to 1980 and 90, the West saw that Africa is quickly emancipating to become an autonomous continent. They came with what they call the wave of multipartyism in Africa. This multipartyism thing is what gave them the new political mechanism to select the kind of leader they want to select in order to take power. When you observe keenly in Africa, all the African leaders that have come to power after 1990 are neo-colonialists. They are never working for Africans. They are working for the West. Because the mechanism of the democracy in Africa is quite different from that of Europe. We saw in America how institutions determine people's strength and ability to stay long or short in power. But in Africa, it is individuals who determine, not the institutions. And these same people who come to tell us and preach us democracy are behind the deals they are signing with these individuals, are behind. I don't understand. Till today, I always ask myself these questions. Cameroon say we are sovereign, we are sovereign, we are sovereign. Do we mint our currency, this franc CFA that we are using to buy? Why should we use franc CFA in Cameroon in 21st century, 2021? Why should we give me a reason why we should use franc CFA and not another currency? Khmer or 237, our own logo. Why should we not use it, our own currency, or print it in this Cameroon? Those are basic problems that we are having, where it still gives you a clear definition of the word neocolonialism to tell you that we are not sovereign. And what the British government is doing is hyper diplomacy. After the Second World War, at least you saw the time that USSR, that's former Russia and its colleague, were fighting with USA and its colleague. The world was somehow balanced. The world was somehow balanced because the interests of USSR and the interests of USA, with their different opposing doctrines of democracy and communism, met in such a way that some African countries saw a different way of leading their people. But when the USA and allies defeated USSR and established globalization and mondialization, they now use democracy to impose their will on weaker countries in Africa and weaker continent. Africa being the weaker continent, with all the resources and everything, but we are unable to survive on our own. That's why even at the level of world pandemic, like the COVID-19 that we are still today, we discover that the tendency in Africa is different in Europe, but they keep us making sure that we follow the same rules that are in Europe, in Cameroon. Why should we follow the same rules in Europe, in Cameroon, when the trend of evolving of this pandemic is not the same as in Cameroon, like in France? So these are the main problems that we are facing, because the reality of our geographical environment, of our pigment, of who we are, of our vision are not the same with these people. But they want us to do a copy and paste system of what they want and impose on us.
Like the MPs are suggesting, the UK cannot use its diplomatic means to ensure that there is de-escalation in violence in the northwest and southwest regions. But Andrew Natemaku, the MPs are saying that the United Kingdom should use diplomatic measures to encourage all sides to call a temporary cessation of military activities and to push them to participate in inclusive peace talks. Very brief.
What I wanted to say is this: Britain, France, and the US had always been working as allies as far back as First and Second World War till the globalization. Allies means that I can always consult you when I want to carry out foreign diplomacy so that we'll be in agreement. And the agreement of the UK government and the French government had always been okay before they go to Africa. That's when they go backdoor negotiations. So what am I trying to say here? The deputies of the UK government and those of the French government who seem so interested in the Anglophone crisis have to show to us that they really care by going beyond just the simple declarations, because it is deputies which are individuals, deputies, MPs which are individuals. It's not even the government, which means their governments,
they are calling on the government
exactly, which means their governments have not even approved what they are saying. Which you see that they are just people of goodwill within a country, which is a long process. So I'm saying that they have the ability to influence one another. UK influencing France, France influencing UK, and UK influencing America, because they are in a block that is a long-lasting friendship. So I think that if these three people want to solve this problem today, Mr. Leo, it's with a twinkle of an eye. They don't just want to do the right thing, but we are calling them to do the right thing because we are watching.
They are calling on them to use diplomatic measures to encourage all sides to call a temporary cessation of military activities and to push them to participate in inclusive peace talks, and they say mediated by an impartial third party.
Mr. Liu, I would say that there are bodies in Africa that should be concerned, especially the AU, but sadly that the AU is an organization that was not formed by the spirit of the Africans themselves. The AU came up in 2002, after the September 11, 2001 of the World Trade, the bombing of the World Trade Center. That was when the United Nations, the EU, decided that Africa should have an organization called the AU so that they can enforce their will using the AU to make sure that Africa does not become a ground for terrorists to engage their attacks over the West. So that was the formation of the AU. Now, you look at it, Mr. Liu, I think that I did not know that Fabrice Lena could really speak that way, but I want to believe that he has said so much that he has almost concluded everything. Because you see, when you are dealing with enemies, where history tells you that these are your enemies, they will not change. Whether time have changed, things have happened, you are dealing with the very same individual. In France, which is one of the poorest countries I know in Europe, where you got absolutely no jobs, with about 8 million people living in abject poverty in France, a place that I have been with no jobs. It's almost like a dead zone. You have a death toll as we speak right now of about 80,000 people that have died of this pandemic. UK, 50,000 people that have died of this pandemic, and it is still evolving as we still speak till now. How do you tell me that they want to leave what is happening there to come and judge a 4,000 people that have been killed in Cameroon in one corner of the world that is very insignificant to them because it's their bread basket, that they want to come and bring peace here? I will tell you that, Mr. Liu, it is still not so. With the number of the people I have cited, like I kept asking, that why is it that when Magufuli in Tanzania decided that his country does not suffer the pandemic issue, and with the system of the WHO put down in place in Africa with all the how many millions of doses of vaccines which they have been sent here, he criticized it. They heavily criticized him. I asked the question here is that, do we have the same currency that we should use the same vaccine? We don't. Do we have the same policies? We don't. So why do they want to impose certain things on us that are not in our agreement? Let me again say this. Like Fabrice Lena rightly talked about democracy. They could use democracy because they had already established their empires. After building their empire, they brought in democracy with already a default and automatic influence. Even if you are voted and you are coming in, there is already a vision in place. But they bring that democracy to Africa when Africa had not attained half of their achievement at the time when they were building their empires, and they expect us to use democracy. It's not possible. Only because the democratic system opens room for many opposition political parties whereby they can always choose among which one they want to keep in place, because they understand that the people do not have sovereignty and they do not have right to self-determination, because to start with, 85% of our natural reserve is being retained at the level of France, whereby we are giving only 15%. That means that the 85% of our population lives in abject poverty. So when you have this kind of imbalance in a country, it gives the foreign nations a room to always control us in times when decisions has to be taken. And Mr. Leo, that is why I kept saying this is UK telling us on what to do. They are PM individuals telling us on what to do. Does UK itself practice democracy? The answer is no. Look at Asia, they don't practice democracy. Russia, they don't practice democracy. Why must it be that the democratic system must be the one that is being forced in Africa? Look at Mali. Mali has fought out a government that has put them under suffering for 25 years, a democratic government. Now they say we want to build a new government. France is still making sure that the same constitution comes again back into place, which has disabled the people for so many years. So, Mr. Leo, all these things is what I want to say is that until the Cameroonians understand that history has made us to know very well that if we don't solve our own problems, we will only be exploited by people who are part of the problems which we are suffering today.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Liu, and the panelist. It's Lista Montana from Yaoundé. Mr. Liu, whenever the Western world comes to Africa, it's always for their interest. Let Africa wake up. Good evening to you, Lista, watching from Yaoundé. Good evening to you, Mr. Liu. My question goes to Mr. Ebako that Cameroonians should be the sole people to resolve this crisis when the Anglophone MPs are silent and you spend your time criticizing other MPs. Abraham is writing from Bamenda. Yes. This one says, good evening, Mr. Kum. I'm near Isaac from Mile 14. Boy, I think what the people need is to take the British government to court. I don't know whether it's possible to take... okay, you think... okay.
Very, very correct, Mr. Liu.
How should it go?
Let me tell you something, Mr. Liu. If today in Cameroon, at the level of our government, the youths are allowed to enter into political decision making, we will put France and UK into reparation. There are other countries that have sued the colonial master for reparation, Mr. Liu. Those are crimes committed against this country. So we cannot just sit here and begin to call them colonial master. On what ground are they? These are people who came here to exploit us, took us here as slaves for their own betterment. So these are not issues that we should begin to toil around. We should put them for reparation.
It's not only the issue of colonial master. When you look at Cameroon in particular, Cameroon was never colonial master of Britain and France until 1916, and the mandate system gave them provision. They violated it. They violated. Britain violated the provisions of the League of Nations, providing that Southern Cameroon is an entity of its own, because they attached Southern Cameroon as integral part of Nigeria and neglected socio-economic development. The people were like struggling to survive on their own. They need to answer all questions. Why did that happen? Even at the level of independence, there are a lot of questions you need to answer. The economic report that we are not viable. Why is it that today is proving that it's Southern Cameroon that is sustaining Cameroon? Yes, because there was an economic report that we could not withstand being an independent nation, which was forced.
Fabrice. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Ita George in Boya, please, I don't want to contribute. I need but the contact of Mr. Fabrice and Mr. Ebako. I like their ideas and manner of presentation of facts and wish to get in touch with them. Can you just write to me after the program? I'll send you Mr. Ebako's number and that of Fabrice. This one says, AU is a toothless bulldog. Is it not France that determines who is chairman of AU? Until Africa asserts its independence, it will not be able to solve its own problems. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Leo. And to the mighty men in the studio, I just want to congratulate the man next to you with the white top. Truly, sir, no help can come from the West. Okay, I'm sure he's talking about Mr. Ebako. Let's stop dreaming. Europe is the most united continent in the world. There is just no way UK can betray France by trying to remove food from their mouth. Cameroon, These guys are one. Africa is their farmland. It's high time we understand these folks. Let's use another strategy to solve this mess. It's John Paul, and writing from Bamenda. Good evening to you, John Paul. Good evening to you, gentlemen. It's Joseph from Bamenda. My take: a house, country, or kingdom divided against itself cannot stand. Let us together wake up from this sleeping and slumbering, because our government has decided not to solve this crisis. Let us, the people, rise. Why? Because when the people rise, the government will submit. Okay. This one reads, good evening, Mr. Leo and all the panelists. I love this program. We should not get up fooling ourselves waiting for the British or France to intervene in this crisis, because they know if this crisis is solved, it will affect them in one way or the other. They can't help us in any way. Valentine is writing from Germany. Good evening to you, Vali. Good evening, Mr. Kum. I like this program very much. Okay. It's Tembo Luis writing from Bengui. Good evening to you, Luis. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Fabrice Lena, you need to be thrown to jail for telling a fat lie against the President of the Republic of Cameroon to incite violence and perpetrate disorder in Cameroon. Rogers is writing from the United States of America. I don't know what Fabrice said. Good evening to you, Mr. Liu. Relindis watching from Bamenda. Courage to you and your team. Keep up. Thank you very much, Relindis. Good evening, Mr. Kum and the people and the studio. Let the UN Security Council give a chance to Africa countries. Secondly, let the UK stop pretending they have full responsibility to take in order to end the problem in southern Cameroon. Zungwa is also writing from Bamenda. Good evening, Mr. Leo. Is Desmond Fobi writing from Douala. I think what the UK is trying to do is just to hide and see, because Britain had already sold Cameroon to France. Okay, Mr. Suleiman, the UK MPs are calling on their government to engage, to work for mediation with the participation of an impartial third party, and to ensure that both sides come together and discuss.
And that's why I was saying that, you see, democracy is not just running amok anyhow. It takes a lot of factors into consideration before a decision is arrived at. People can say whatever they like, but if they are there, they will know that things are not what it seems to be. You understand? So I think what the British MPs are doing, as I said earlier, there should be an inclusive dialogue. There should be an inclusive dialogue where all the warring factions are present in that dialogue. With an external arbiter, the British government and whoever is supposed to be there, so that contentious issues should be discussed, dialogue, and understood, so that an amicable decision can be taken at the final discussion. You understand? So, but I think in my own opinion, I believe that the movement made by the MPs is wonderful, outstanding, and remarkable, no matter the historical background. To me, I know that one has evolved a long time. And I think now we are in a world that economics dictate, politics dictate, and so many factors play before anything is being taken into consideration. It's not just a matter of we have to do this. No, it's not like that. Certain things have to be taken into consideration. So for the MPs to say that we should go for dialogue with a third party, it's a positive step taken in the right direction. It is accepted. If that's going to be so, it's going to be accepted. But I said earlier, the government of this country will not accept that.
Okay, the government of this country will not accept that. We take a short break. When we come back, we discuss on our second topic for tonight. Welcome back. You are watching Prime Hour on My Media Prime. We are now going to be looking at the Bilingualism Commission. Cameroon is celebrating the Bilingualism Week. Last week, we celebrated the Bilingualism Week. It was launched across the nation. We find out what the Bilingualism Commission has been able to bring to foster Cameroon's bilingualism effort. Are we on the right track? Are things better? Today we are going to be discussing this with our panelists who are in the house, but I would like us to start with Tiku Felix from Buea.
It is a very good and a very important gesture, but as you know, no matter how good a gesture or a project is, what actually gives it credibility is the motive behind it. No matter how much I receive from you or how wonderful your gifts to me are, so long as the motive of your giving is wrong, it means even the fruit it will bear will be bad fruits. Let me put it this way. Like I just said, Cameroon is a bilingual country in which one language claims supremacy based on numerical advantage and has decided to erase the reality of it through a planned assimilation which actually didn't work, like the head of state cited. And one of the
that was not the first intervention. This should be the third intervention. You have to fix something there, Eli. There is a first intervention before this. We should start with the first intervention. But let's get to our panel out here. I'll start with... Okay, yes. Do you think anything has changed since the creation of the Bilingualism Commission as far as bilingualism is concerned?
I think, to the best of my knowledge, I know that during the reign of Amadou Ahidjo, we had Lycée Bilingue de Buea. We have Lycée Bilingue de Application Yaoundé. We have them all. We have lycées many ways. This bilingualism thing did not start today. It's an old thing in this country. The government has been fighting to foster bilingualism, but again, it has been used against the people of Southern Cameroon. Yes, because bilingualism, when you look at the scenario today, if you look at the scenario today, you cannot promote bilingualism under this present condition we are in today. Bilingualism, the intentions are good, but again, if you look at the situation today in this country, bilingual, we have been relegated to the background. We have been termed second-class citizens because of our background. We have lost so many colonial legacies because of our background. We lost Marketing Board, we lost Cameroon Bank, we lost a National Marketing Board, we lost Midino, we lost Santa Coffee. All those things have been replaced by French institutions.
Midino is still there now.
Okay, Midino is still there. It has been replaced by French institutions. These are legacy left behind by the British for us. But all those have been wiped and replaced by French institutions. You see, and the government of this country want to make sure that want to portray this country as a French-speaking country, not as a British-speaking country or an Anglophone country.
Yeah, but is it not because of their numerical strength?
I'm coming to that. I'm coming to that. You are right by saying that their numerical strength determine whichever decision they are taking. But if you see from the promotions of Anglophone from civil service, from the appointments of Anglophones to civil service.
No, but you are looking at the Anglophone problem. That's not what
I'm coming
about.
I'm coming.
Yes.
The bilingualism system has, well, to some extent, as I said, it has its good part of it, and it's a negative part of it. But negative part of it outweighs the positive part of it. We cannot say bilingualism is total failure in this country. No. It has done its own good part. It has helped people.
But the commission was created some years back. You know
the commission created some years back because the bilingualism commission is even it was not even supposed to be created.
Okay.
It was not supposed, because these are white elephant structures created for people to amass wealth and to enrich people. Because the prevailing circumstances in this country now, it does not permit for such a white elephant structure to be created in order to use it as a yardstick or a parameter to link the two eyes, the English speaking and no. This bilingual commission is unnecessary. allow us to use our institutions of the allow us to use our institutions of the state, the secondary schools and what have you, the primary schools. Allow us to use the institutions of the state, the secondary schools, the primary schools, the technical schools. Let us use our institutions to promote bilingualism, not to come and create a commission on bilingualism in the heat of a crisis when the country is in serious turmoil. No. Allow institutions like secondary school, primary school, see the bilingual school, bilingual colleges, let them promote from that end. But not that you come and create a commission only for people to...
Your assessment of the commission since its creation, has anything changed in our bilingualism drive as a nation?
Well, I would say that one of the advantages we've inherited from the colonial master so far is the bilingualism aspect. Language is a very fundamental aspect of development, and I always say that knowing multiple languages is first of all individually advantageous. It's individually advantageous. I, as an individual, as a leader, I will first of all promote a national language, which is not English or French, before talking about English and French. But I have no choice to talk about English and French because that's what is prevailing now, and that's what we've inherited. And looking at the trend at which the bilingualism issue in Cameroon is unfolding, based on the commission created or even before the commission created, I would say that assessing its achievements at the individual level of Cameroonians, people have really been making efforts to speak the both languages at their individual level. But looking at the administration, the public service, it's still predominantly French. Looking at military service in Cameroon is completely French. Looking at presidential management in Cameroon is predominantly French. So when you look at the services rendered by the public administration, which is supposed to serve members of the public, English, French, you begin to ask yourself questions if we are really promoting bilingualism. Some few weeks ago, I saw a report of a TV station on a particular school in the West Region, Bambutus, where some children consume drugs there, and when they were showing the signboard of that school, I look at funny translations, and these are most of the little things that makes some of us from the southern Cameroons with our own colonial heritage to be frustrated. That, why should a government, a state with its arms and a commission working to promote bilingualism and culture, not take note of poor translation or poor, poor language of another language that, according to Article 3, Sub 3 of our Constitution, they have equal status and they are supposed to function in the same manner. You will hardly see a poorly written French almanac or banners or translation somewhere, but it is frequently English. That is to tell you the level of ineffectiveness, and it is not taken with a lot of seriousness. It's taken with levity. And this syndrome in the geographical location of the capital of Cameroon, also Yaoundé, is a serious problem in Yaoundé. Most Anglophones are frustrated working in Yaoundé because of the predominant people who are in the place do not first of all make effort to speak. If they take the capital of Cameroon out of Yaoundé to another place, the level of bilingualism will emancipate faster because everybody will be going to that neutral place, will fight to know. But when people come and meet you in your own area and everything is passing around there and you have the advantages of working or not working, you enjoy because you are geographically favored, it becomes difficult. So these are the aspects of bilingualism in Cameroon that is frustrating Cameroonians. Everything boils down to the people. If the population are not enjoying the services of a commission that has been formed, I don't see the need for that commission. If you go to public service in Cameroon and you get frustrated by the use of French language or a communique or a document, and you take it to bilingualism commission or lay a complaint, that complaint will go nowhere because the bilingualism commission and the Commission for Anti-Corruption, where you CONAC, all of them are working to save the CPDM-led regime.
Okay.
They are not working to favor Cameroonians.
Yep. If Tiku Felix is ready, can we get his intervention?
Happy New Year to all of you. Mr. Leo, I want to believe that the aspect of setting up a bilingualism commission in Cameroon is a very wonderful move. It is a very good and a very important gesture. But as you know, no matter how good a gesture or a project is, what actually gives it credibility is a motive behind it. No matter how much I receive from you or how wonderful your gifts to me are, so long as the motive of your giving is wrong, it means even the fruit it will bear will be bad fruit. Let me put it this way. Like I just said, Cameroon is a bilingual country in which one language claims supremacy based on numerical advantage and has decided to erase the reality of it through a planned assimilation which actually didn't work, like the head of state cited. And one of the means or one of the reasons why the Anglophone problem we have today escalated. Should there have been a successful assimilation, Mr. Leo, would we have been talking of, or should we have been talking about the bilingual nature of Cameroon? The Bilingualism Commission, as we know, was created as a tool to reinforce national unity and to create an atmosphere in which Cameroonians will have that willingness to live together. But unfortunately, it came at a time, that's at the time of its creation, the crisis and the urge of the Anglophones to live as an independent entity had reached its peak. Thus, to me, the creation of the commission was not relevant, since it would be incapable of actually carrying out the task for which it was being created. A bilingualism commission for a bilingual country like Cameroon is good for checks and balances to make sure that the equal status aspect is implemented. But with Cameroon situation, the commission died before it was even created. Mr. Leo, I believe and I know that the members of the Bilingualism Commission in Cameroon, they didn't actually have a clue to what their actual function is, since they were there just to be used as a tool for a scam solution to the escalated Anglophone crisis in Cameroon. So they were there, but what actually a bilingualism commission should perform, its actual function, was not what these ones were created to actually do in Cameroon.
Okay, Tiku Felix, you think like Tiku, or you have the impression that things have moved, especially when it comes to the government circle?
When it comes to the government circle, I will look at it differently from the non-governmental organizations and from the individual standpoint of view. This is some of the resistance and issues, conflicts that America has been having with China ever since its relationship with China. China has always kept their tradition and have refused to integrate themselves to the American way of life. And that has created tension for all these years between America and China. We don't refuse that there's always an added advantage when you are capable of speaking multiple languages. Languages is a very sweet and a tremendous opportunity anybody can have, being a linguistic, mastering other languages. I think that it was a good vision, but the question here is, who do we want to, the bilingualism is on what side? Because if you look at it from the side of the structure of the government, we understand that it was assimilation. So you are assimilating the Anglophones to speak French. The question here is, do you want the French to speak English? The answer here was no in the first place. So you realize that even at the level of the head of state, he does not speak English. He finds very difficulty speaking English. Normally, if you are promoting bilingualism as a head of state, you should have made every effort. I know an old man who leaves China, leaves France, leaves Germany. Once he enters into a different country, the first thing he does is to make sure he makes every effort to speak the language of that country, which is very important because that's the culture. So you realize that at the level of our government, that effort is not being made. But Cameroonians are making the efforts to be bilingual. We have seen at the level of the Cameroonians themselves, that has shown a lot of changes. A lot of Anglophones speak French, and a lot of Francophones today do speak English. Francophones have their children sent to English schools, where their children now are probably the next generation coming up, they will totally bilingual. But now look at the structure of the government. That is where the resistance is, and that's what the head of state was talking about, the assimilation. And that's when you go back to history, you come to realize that the French, France then taught the French Cameroon how to colonize the English Cameroon. That's where the whole idea of assimilation came from. So you look at it in this way, Mr. Liu, the government should not really have been promoting bilingualism alone, but we should have had another language that we should have put also as our official language, while we also promote bilingualism, because it stands today in Cameroon, we have only English and French, and that is what we inherited from our colonial background, which I would say that is the only good thing, I would say, that after all the catastrophe they had caused here, that was the only thing that was good that they left with us was the language. So you realize that, like I said, Mr. Liu, language is a culture, and this was done because it makes it in such a way that they can always, there will always be a breach of connection. There will always be a flow of communication when you have passed the people your culture. For example, in a country like Germany, you will not be given a visa if you have not done the basics in German, because they understand that not only would you find the culture in their language, not only would you find how to move around the country if you don't know the language, because they only have one dialect, and which is the Dutch. So the language is very important. So Cameroon becoming a bilingual country, I think that if I look at today, comparing to many years ago, I think that, Mr. Liu, gradually we are taking a step forward into the bilingualism, but at the level of the government, the state itself, that is not being promoted the way they have, the way the commission is being built. That's why I'm saying here, Mr. Liu, is that when you talk about bilingualism, we understand that the French do dominate. We don't refuse that, but it doesn't change the fact when you are talking about bilingualism. That means there must be a balance, whether it is 1,000 over 100. The 1,000 should be able to speak the English, and the 100 is supposed to be able to speak the French. So it doesn't matter on the population. We are talking of bilingualism, but at the level of the government, we don't see that. And that's why I realized that at that point, they keep the tradition. And at the level of out of the government, they promote it. So you come to realize that the system of still assimilation still stands in place while we still talk about bilingualism.
You have the impression that nothing has changed since the creation?
No. For the commission itself, Mr. Liu, for the commission itself, like he cited, if you go to a place like Yaoundé, typically Yaoundé, that is a village, how many people living there, working in the government administration that do speak English? That is a question you need to ask yourself. At the level of the capital, we are talking here of capital, Mr. Liu. We are not talking of other areas in Cameroon. That's the capital. And that capital itself is not being promoted. Then how do you expect now the commission to work effectively when the heads themselves violate the very commission which they put in place? That's my point I'm making, that the common man is making more efforts than the government itself.
Now, I want us to look at the relevance of this commission. We are in the middle of an Anglophone crisis, and the president comes up with the Bilingualism Commission. How relevant was it? Does it actually...
You see, in my own opinion, the reason why this thing was created was because, one, the commission was supposed to make sure that Cameroon is bilingual and united, indivisible. That is one. Number two, that they want to make sure that whether you are Francophone or Anglophone, you should see yourself as a brother's keeper. Number three, we should believe in the corporate existence of Cameroon as one country, one nation, one entity. We should not talk about separation or secession. In my opinion, that's how I see why this commission was created. But again, But again, the prevailing situation in the Norway and Southwest, the animosity, the tensions, the killings and what have you, it will not make the Bilingualism Commission to achieve its aims and objectives. They cannot move around, they cannot talk to people, and no matter how good the intention of the commission was, no matter the aims and objectives, but the prevailing circumstances in the ground could not prevail them to achieve what they are supposed to do because of the prevailing situation. Mm-hmm. No matter how the aims and objectives are good, their functions are good, but it is a wrong it's a wrong decision taken at the wrong time because of the prevailing situation in the Norway and Southwest. And that is why the commission has died a natural death because they have not achieved one of the objectives. They could not even go around and educate people, inform people, and sensitize people on why they were even formed or created.
They were in Buea and Bamenda.
Okay, all of these are capitals. Mm-hmm. But is Buea? Is it the entire Southwest? Is Bamenda the entire Northwest? No, sir. It's not so. They are supposed to go down to the divisions, maybe to the subdivisions, and pass their mission, their messages. But they could not do that because of this prevailing situation on the ground in the Northwest and Southwest region. So I think, as I said, to me, I see as a elephant, it's a white elephant structure created for people to chop money or eat money because since they were created, their impact was not felt by the common man in the Northwest and Southwest region. But until now, the commission has died a natural death.
How can you say it's dead when we know that they had a budget for this year now?
They had a budget, but what is that? That's what they had. That's what I say. It's a white elephant structure created for people to eat money because up to today, the impact of the commission is not felt in the Northwest and Southwest region. Nobody knows the aims and objectives. Nobody knows their functions.
You mean the local man?
I mean the local man on the ground. Mm-hmm. So I mean when I'm talking about the local man on the ground. So you see, it's an inner house affair. Only the commission members and the inner caucus of the presidency know the aims and objectives while that was created. Because what they could have done was to something like a vox box somewhere. So that people should contribute the idea as to how the commission could move around. But that was not done. You see, they put it all over. People should contribute the idea how the commission. It was not done. So it was an internal matter of the presidency and the commission members, and they did not go anywhere. And yet they have been allocated another budget again for this year. What for?
To function, they need to work now. They are holding seminars and that the exchange. Let's once again listen to Atiku Felix.
Mr. Leo, the Bilingualism Commission, it has a mission to promote or to monitor the implementation of constitutional provisions establishing French and English as two official languages of equal status, Mr. Leo. They talk of equal status, and especially ensuring their use in all government services, semi-public bodies, as well as any state subsidized body. It also has the responsibility with receiving petitions against discriminations arising from non-compliance with the constitutional provisions on bilingualism and multiculturalism and reporting thereon to the President of the Republic. It also has a duty to perform any other task assigned to it by the President of the Republic, including mediation. How many years today since its creation we can't talk or have not even heard of a single act or gesture initiated by this commission on the aspect of mediation, Mr. Leo? So what tack do we give it here? Talking about the aspect of the two official languages having equal status, it is kind of provocative. This commission is not only irrelevant, it has not only failed, but has wasted the country's resources and money and needs to be dissolved with the immediate effect. That is my take. Mr. Leo, all those appointed to run this commission need to be brought to book. When you get to our courts in the NOSO today, that's the Northwest and the Southwest regions today, when you get to the financial sectors of all the delegations, all the ministries, when you read communiques from Yaoundé, from the various ministries, Mr. Leo, it becomes so frustrating. I mean, even now, when we have a commission called Bilingualism Commission with a task of making sure there is equal status in the implementation of the English and the French, which are the two official languages, but yet French still proves its dominance. Even our own Prime Minister and the Minister of Territorial Administration, they are Anglophones, but everything they do is French. Normally, they were supposed to implement the bilingual aspect of it. I want to believe this is what Bilingualism Commission needs to be doing. The Prime Minister cannot be addressing the body of ministers in French, where I see is an Anglophone, a representation of the Anglophones. The Minister of Territorial Administration can't be doing same. French is proving its supremacy, and they are there to boost this aspect of French, proving its supremacy. This commission, Mr. Leo, I don't really know what we actually need to say. From all ministries, the rest of it you get to the banks, CNPS, what of it, the military and the police, English is completely absent until it has been tagged French is the language of the military. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? And we talk of Bilingualism Commission. We talk of equal status in two official languages. A commission that seems to be quiet and dead, yet having the mandate of receiving petitions against discriminations arising from non-compliance with the constitutional provisions on bilingualism and reporting to the President of the Republic. Wow, what a joke.
Okay, what a joke there from Atiku Felix all the way from Boya. Thank you for that contribution. Now, Fabrice Elena, what is the problem? The President of the Republic thought that Anglophones had a problem, or that maybe there was a problem of living together in Cameroon, and felt maybe that a bilingualism and multiculturalism commission could play a role in trying to bring in bridging the gap in Cameroon, but seemingly things are not working out. He raised it, and Atiku Felix is also raising. Is it the issue of incompetence, or the issue of less powers given to them, or why is it not working out?
Yeah, it's an issue of political will.
Okay.
It's an issue of political will because I would say it's an issue of political will because for some time now we've seen that the President of the Republic himself have not been an active president. He has just been receiving reports. And most of the commissions he created as an attempt to maybe appease the Anglophones for the crisis, or to solve the Anglophone crisis, or what he thinks, or maybe his collaborators tell him will be a solution to Anglophone crisis, have all failed, including the Commission for Promotion of Bilingualism and Multiculturalism. Because when you want to create something that is to make everyone feel belong, you have to first of all try as much as possible to promote it. I don't think that if someone who does not know Chinese is sent to China as an ambassador, and then in a cultural festival in China, authorities decide to invite you, and maybe you go and someone write you a speech in Chinese and try to groom you up, and you go and in the presentation you make mistakes. Chinese will laugh at you because they know that is not your language of education or the language with whom you have grown up. At this stage, given the age of the President of the Republic, given for how long he has managed this country, we should have even expected that one of his addresses, be it end of year speech, be it address to youth, be it in kind of emergent issues, he should come up and even address the people in the English language to respect even that constitutional provision of the equal status of the language. There will be some sort of what we call humility in service, the servant of a leadership. But like my brother said, it's like provocation, where there is some sort of divine leader who the bilingualism issue does not concern him. Because leader is example. If he's leading like that, it means he is the one giving impetus to the Prime Minister, to the Minister of Territorial Administration, to Secretary General of the Presidency, and the rest of the people managing the military not to care about the other language. Because the first citizen of the country doesn't care. So I think it is a matter of political will. Because if the political will is to make sure that Cameroon and Cameroonians speak these two languages, is inculcated in their institutions. Before the Anglophone crisis, what used to happen? A lot of Anglophone parents send their children into Francophone system of education. A lot of Francophone parents and even civil administrators send their children to Anglo-Saxon system of education in Bamenda, Boya, and the other schools that they used to admire a lot. And these children come out bilingual because their language of growth is French, and they go to school and learn in English and grow up to be bilingual. Some ministers have been making effort. When they grant interview, they speak in the language that the person granting the interview takes, or the media house or the news that is going to be presented is to be presented in that language. But we see that in most of certain services that hold what they call the membrane, the core of the country, it is not implemented there. And that's why it's like some of these things are just done to like, okay, in this sector we can grant, but when it comes here, no. Especially in what they call Secretariat d'État de la Défense in Yaoundé, what they call SET in Yaoundé. In SET, everything is French. I have been questioned there. And I remember the first time I go there, I said my original language is English. I cannot be questioned in French. I must have a lawyer who will interpret what you were saying. And the report you're reading should be translated so that you have my... It was a total argument that led to some kind of negotiation at the end after a long time. Because these are frustrations that Cameroonians go through. Because this is the same thing that took so many people in Northwest and Southwest to go to prison because of their inability to express themselves in the other language, because the military and uniform officers, their language of operation is French, which is totally unacceptable.
Just need to accept the fact that many of these commissions were created to please some die-hard supporters of the regime, cause they show no example to the population as far as promotion of bilingualism in Cameroon is concerned. Terence is writing from Mutengene. Good evening to you, Terence. Dear Mr. Liu, good evening. It's Emma from Bamenda. I do agree with Felix that the creation of the commission is good, but the motive is not there. Let's compare it with Canada, where the commission has powers to reinforce and prosecute defaulters, but that of Cameroon is take report to head of state. What a shame. Too less bold dog. Good evening to you. Hi, Liu. It's exciting to speak multiple languages, but the Bilingualism Commission is a shadow of itself. We should focus on valorizing our vernaculars as it's done in other African countries. This can be more unifying. The problem with Cameroon is poor leadership. J.N. Agbo, good evening to you, Mr. Agbo. Good evening, Mr. Liu and Mr. Kum and the other. That I don't know his name. What I want to say is that the UN, UK, and the so-called AU are all toothless bulldogs. They could back very well to the hearing of everyone, but cannot bite. I'm Jane, writing from Bamenda. Good evening to you, Jane. Hello, Mr. Leo. Good evening to you and all the panelists in the House. The government should not think they can use bilingualism to bring a united Cameroon, because that can only happen in dreams. A man's house who is on fire does not go chasing after rats. Collins is writing from Tombell. Greetings. Good evening, Mr. Liu. It's Desmond Foba from Douala. I think Bilingualism Commission has done nothing better. For example, since its creation, what good example have they done as compared to bilingualism? And who have they even sanctioned for not moving official documents in both languages? Okay. Thank you, dear panelists, for stressing on the word new colonialism. a word most of our speakers scarcely use on this our struggle. Okay. Good evening to you, Mr. Liu. Even when we go to the Cameroon embassy in Germany, if you can't speak French, almost no one attends to you. If you are fortunate to meet an Anglophone personnel, fine. Whether this commission has changed things in the administration, I doubt. Okay. Good evening, Mr. Kum. Please, since the creation of this bilingualism thing, amidst this crisis, where is the office found in the Northwest and Southwest? And why is the decree still coming out in French? And is it impact since its creation? Please, let them solve the Anglophone problem, then this numerous communication creation. Okay. Claudia is writing from Boya. Good evening, Mr. Liu. To all the panelists, I think we should stop calling for international bodies for help because all are under the EU. They produce guns and sell to us to kill ourselves. Mr. Bako, please take the lead. We are behind you. Paul Noel is writing from the United Arab Emirates. Mr. Bako, how do we get this commission functional so that Cameroonians can reap benefits?
Mr. Liu, you see, in 1960 to 1972, the population of these two countries was about 7 million, which was made of the French and the English, which at that point it should have been stressed that the unity of these two people should be defined in bilingualism. Even when after the incumbent president took over power, that should have been stressed for the need for bilingualism in this country to unify the people or to bring about unism. But like I still say, that the Commission for Bilingualism is coming up at the wrong time, that it cannot create the kind of effect which it could have when it was still due time, when the country was still young and growing. At this point right now, it will not create any effect, and that is why I said that it is not there for the French in the French administration to learn English, because if by now we are still talking about bilingualism, the head of state should have known that when you are appointing somebody, whether as a minister or as who, should at least capable enough to express his or herself both in English and in French with no stress. That is not the case we have. So what I'm saying, Mr. Liu, is that we still talk again of bilingualism, and yet we are using French CFA, and we are talking of bilingualism in Cameroon. You realize certain contradictions, and you begin to ask yourself, Mr. Liu, is that how far is this bilingualism going to take us far into where we are supposed to go to? It is true that the language was supposed to play, as our other co-panelists they said, was supposed to play in the advantage of the unity of this country and the strength of the people. Because if the head of state could understand English, knowing that the people from the English Cameroon, that is their modern language which they inherited from a very horrific history, should know that their language is their culture, and it's easy for you to relate with the people when you know their language, because you know what they are going through and you know what they need. But when you don't even know the language, it's very difficult for you to even know what they are talking about and what they are complaining, because language seems to be the culture here.
No, but there's a video where the President of the Republic speaks English now.
Mr. Liu, we are not talking of one
of the U.S. presidents.
Yeah, we are not talking of how will I call it, rhymes where you go and how they call it.
Why can he not address
Cameroon?
Well, let him address Cameroon.
I am talking here of communication. We are not talking of rehearsals or saying a rhyme or what. We are talking of being able to communicate.
Even if he does the rehearsal here in Cameroon, we will appreciate.
That is what I'm trying to say. So we are not denying the fact that we have not had some statement made by the head of state in English. We have not refused that. But we are talking of the flow of English and French in the country.
Greetings to you and everyone in the studio. The administration should refrain from mental slavery. That is what is putting us in danger. No, bilingualism is a solution. We are solution ourselves. Mr. Agbo Robert, writing from the United States of America. This one says, good evening, Mr. Liu. It's Delphine in Yaoundé. Please help me ask this question. Last week and no answer was given to. Please, sorry. Good evening, Mr. Liu. I'm married to my husband, happy with his condition, but he don't treat me well, and that condition is he is please, Delphine, if you are watching us from Yaoundé, tomorrow we are going to be talking about issues between couples. We are going to have some persons who are experts in that domain of husband and wife. So tomorrow, the program tomorrow is going to look at that aspect, why we have squabbles and misunderstanding in the home. Good evening, Mr. Kum. Bilingualism Commission has done nothing good. David is writing from Uyuka. David, good evening to you. Good evening, Mr. Liu and the viable guests in the studio. I wish to express my appreciation for the topic of discussion and the guests for doing a wonderful job. The Commission of Bilingualism is a good initiative, but for wrong timing and other commissions, it suffers from poor implementation and does not fall short of a limping giant, Mr. Ambe Emmanuel, writing from Baum in Bafut subdivision. Okay, that's as you enter Bafut. Okay, this one says, you have a right to. We have to get one last contribution from Tiku Felix, and then we call it a day for today.
Now, Mr. Leo, the question, have this commission actually achieved anything, is mind-blowing in the negative. To me, the question should be, what do they actually want to achieve? Remember, they report to the president, right? It is their duty, and one of their function is to perform any other task assigned to it by the president of the republic, including mediation. So their mediation is obviously going to be in line with what the president deems necessary and what he defines as actual mediation. For example, Mr. Leo, if the so-called Grand National Dialogue, according to the president, was a success, though it yielded no fruit till date, and to us it was a failure. If the president terms it success, it means what the National, the Bilingualism Commission defines as achievement is not actually what we also define as achievement. Now, according to them, one of their achievements is that they granted audience to multitude of heads of diplomatic representatives based in Yaoundé and some senior officials of international organizations on their request. I can imagine if these organizations had not requested these audiences. Mr. Leo, it's so terrible. It's so terrible. I believe common sense will teach us that planting from the roots or building from the foundation is a guarantee that the structure is going to stand and it's going to yield good fruits and the goals are going to be achieved. If we want to give bilingualism the equal status, don't we think our schools should be targeted? Don't we think if we start implementing some of these rules in our schools, we are going to actually achieve what our goals are when you talk of bilingualism? What strategies have this commission put in place to enforce the teaching of English language in Francophone schools, Mr. Leo, since inception? Because as we know, Francophone schools have or Anglophone schools have had English language being imposed on them because the agenda of assimilation.
Okay, we are caught by time. We have to end here. Just to say, greetings, sir. This is Chief Moja. This your program is good, sir. May God bless you. Your Highness, Chief Moja. We are glad to know that you are watching, and we also say that God bless you out there. You should be watching us from, I'm sure, Boya. I hope when I come to Buea, we can meet. I'm sure. Good evening, Mr. Liu. Is Delphine, what time would the program start tomorrow? Delphine, the program will start tomorrow, 7 p.m. Tomorrow on this same edition, on this same program, we are going to be discussing about marital issues. Many problems are faced by many couples today. So tomorrow we are focusing on couples, what they ought to do to turn the situation around, because the divorce rates across the globe, Cameroon particularly, is also very, very alarming. Many messages, we can't read them because of time. I want to thank you, Mr. Suleiman, all the way from Kumba.
Yes. Yes, well, I'm happy that I'm here. I preside over the program. I contributed to the success of the program, and all I would tell my media prime is that aluta continua, victoria is certain.
We hope that the roads to Kumba are safer as you go back. Thank you, Fabrice Leonard. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure for me to be a guest in your program. And I want to say thank you to all our listeners and viewers.
And to you, Andrin Atemibako, thank you for coming.
Thank you very much, Mr. Komyona. Thank all the other panelists and the viewers.
Special thank you to you too, Atiku Felix, who took part in the program from Buea. We equally want to say thank you to all of you who watched through the social media, you who watched from across the nation and beyond, and to the production team, Eli and Desmond, Noel and Bertrand working at the broadcasting, equally to you, Tabi, Tambe Bryant, who is supervising our work out there. Stay blessed. Bye-bye.